What's up, guys? We are back with episode 8 of Should I Feel Strongly About. I am Dr. Meghan Wieser, a physio coach at Recharge. Happy New Year! We are officially in 2021. I feel like it's been a while since we recorded anything. But I want, since, tis the season, I want to talk about New Year's resolutions a little bit today. And I don't hate these. It's still shit I feel strongly about, but there's I think a lot that goes into it that people kind of set themselves up for failure with, and there's ways to kind of get around that. So around this time period, there's a lot of talk about resolutions, and there's almost a lot of peer pressure in that, like, you need to improve, or it's New Year's, you have to have a goal for something, which I don't necessarily agree with. There's people who have ongoing goals throughout their life anyway, whether it's New Year's or not, but I understand the sentiment. But as we all know, there's a lot of people who don't really stick to their New Year's resolutions or their New Year's goals. There's a statistic floating around out there that less than 8% of people actually stick to their New Year's resolutions. And I'm sure a lot of that is very context dependent on what these resolutions are, and who the people are that are making these resolutions and how realistic it is for them in their life. But I digress. But there's a whole host of reasons I think that people don't stick to that kind of thing. But there's a couple reasons floating around in my head that I think are top of mind. So I'm going to kind of go through that today and maybe even help kind of, change the course of that. So I think the first reason that pops in my mind as to why people don't stick to their resolutions is that we get these like big, hairy, audacious goals and get super excited to like start improving things. We're like, okay, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And the goal or the resolution that you create for yourself is so unrealistic and ridiculously huge that it's not sustainable. So then when you go to, try to hit this goal, whether it's like read 50 pages a day or run a mile a day or whatever, when you don't hit that, then people start beating up on themselves, thinking that they are an imperfect human, and they just throw out the goal or the resolution altogether. I think that people who do stick to their resolutions have a different mindset when it comes to, one, creating their goals. Their goals are usually created a little bit more realistically for them and sustainably for them. But regardless, even if it's not, we need to treat our failures and our setbacks in those beginning stages as data points or as an opportunity to learn and to course correct or change, alter things if we need to. We're human, right? We're not meant to be put in these little perfect boxes. We're not meant to be robotic and perfect every single day of the week. We have emotions that inherently makes us imperfect. The difference between the resolutioners who give up a month in, a week in, whatever, and the resolutioners who kind of, stick with it for a longer period of time, a sustainable period of time, is that they pick goals or they pick resolutions that they think they can relatively stick with and fits into their lifestyle realistically without bending over backwards. Or it's that they treat those initial failures or initial setbacks as learning points and ways to kind of course correct and shift their mindset to that. So it's more of a growth mindset, like going into this knowing not every day is going to be perfect, but I'm going to do the best I can, kind of thing. Another reason that I think that people lose track or don't stick to these resolutions is that we fall into this like analysis paralysis stage where, we're thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, and we're thinking and thinking and thinking. We're reading blogs and we're reading books and we're going down this rabbit hole of personal development and like learning how to do everything and whatnot. But there's not actually any doing, right? Like it's just kind of inevitably delaying this action that you want to take on your life. So people are, I think people just get stuck in this rut of like being paralyzed by analyzing every which point of whatever they want to change about their life instead of actually just making one small change or one small step toward that goal. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction any day, right? Like take one step. Something is better than nothing. There's something out there called, I think, like the Kaizen effect. And it has to do with like it's like the power of tiny small gains every single day. If you aim to be 1% better every single day, the return on that is going to be much larger versus if you try to improve 100% every single day. One, that's not sustainable, and two, you're probably going to end up tiring yourself out and not really improve in the long run anyway. Versus making small, tiny gains and getting just a little bit better and a little bit more efficient and feeling better, improving a little bit every single day. The power of 1%, right? The culmination effect of that is going to be much larger than you just trying to make a quick fix and a quick change on something. Instead of just thinking about how you're going to do this or why you're going to do this and when you're going to do this, just do something. Anything is better than nothing. On that note, when we create resolutions, it's usually to try and like correct something that we feel is imperfect in our lives, or to add something more good to our life. And that's not a bad thing. But I think that some resolutions and some goals are created with the mindset of like it being a very quick fix. And we're treating our lives as like sprints and not marathons. And there's a whole lot of marketing that goes into that too, right? Like everybody's selling you these stupid diet pills. Everybody's selling you these stupid skinny teas. And even outside of the realm of like physical fitness and diet culture and stuff. But there's always, we're humans. We want a quick fix, right? The hard stuff is the stuff that takes time and it is very habitual and is going to take some failures and some learning from those failures. And sometimes these resolutions that don't get stuck to are because we're treating our lives as sprints and not marathons, and something that needs to just habitually change over time instead of like at the drop of a hat. The next reason why I think that resolutions don't always get stuck to has a lot to do with your community and your social support system. Now, this doesn't really apply to every resolution, but I think when we say things out loud and have our circle keep us accountable, it changes not the pressure you put, well, yeah, I guess the pressure you put on yourself, or I guess the accountability that you have for yourself too, right? So like there's this saying out there, I've read it like a million times, but it's like, if your circle isn't cheering you on and helping you win or whatever, then you need a new circle. So along those lines is what I'm saying, right? Like we can't do everything alone. I think if 2020 has taught us anything, we need people, we need humans, we need social support, we need friends, we need family, we need to be around people that we like being around. And so I think that goes into achieving your goals and improving yourself as a person too, right? There's another saying out there that has something to do with like you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with or something. And I think there's something to that, right? Like you're around these people and they infect you with your thoughts and vice versa. And I think that can help a lot when it comes to creating goals and when you're trying to better yourself and develop yourself personally. So there's something to be said about having community support and social support, even if it's just one person that you're like, I need you to make sure I do X, Y, and Z. Which may mean hiring a coach or a therapist or somebody in your life to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So I think a lot of goals we want, a lot of resolutions that people create can be kind of arbitrary too, right? Like be more happy. Like, okay, we need to break that down a little bit. So you need to be detailed on what you want, right? Because a goal without a plan is basically just a wish, right? And I agree with that and I don't. But anyway, some goals are really measurable. So keep track of that. Like if it's something like I want to deadlift 2 times my body weight by August of this year. You can keep track of that very easily. That is super objective. That's really easy to keep track of. And some goals don't necessarily have easy measurables. And those are the ones where I feel like people can get caught up in the monotonous day-to-day stuff. So that improving by 1% every single day, right? Like that's not instantly gratifying all the time. And it can become like, you get kind of stuck in this like, well, where's the finish line kind of thing. And I don't think there always is a finish line. Like happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey and you make it what it is. With that being said, though, I still think that you need to create, there's ways to create instant gratification for yourself so that you do feel good about moving toward this goal, which may mean a host of different things. But there's ways to kind of create little moments of excitement for you as you go to progress toward this big, hairy thing that you're habitually doing. Like happiness isn't this, summit at this big mountain. Like, yes, I did it. I'm happy now. Like it's that's ever changing and evolving. And I think a lot of people's resolutions and goals are too. So finding ways to kind of improve slowly every single day, improving by 1%, but also making it exciting for yourself so that you feel like you're actually accomplishing something. Lastly, and this is probably more on par with the typical content you see from me, but goals or resolutions that are rooted in restriction or like self sabotage are not sustainable. Like, what the hell? And what I mean by that is, so like, you can have goals that are about pre-workout, pre and post workout nutrition. You can have goals about hitting more steps per day, hitting more active minutes throughout the week or whatever. And that's great. But the goals that I'm talking about are the ones that that sound like they're really good goals, but they're truly coming from a place of like, I don't want to say hating yourself, but like coming from a place of hating yourself and restricting yourself and punishing yourself for being whatever adjective. And then, we think that this is going to make us better, right? Like the goals I'm talking about are like, make sure I burn 600 calories every single workout I do, or make sure not to eat above 200 grams of carbs per day. That's a very arbitrary number. But like those goals sound great, right? Like you're making it measurable, you're putting an objective piece to it, and it's probably rooted in you wanting to improve your physique or improve your activity level. That's great, but you're doing it from a place of restriction and a place of punishment versus like no less than however many calories pre-workout so that I know I'm fueling myself for the demands I'm about to place on my body and that I'm setting myself up for good muscle recovery, versus make sure not to eat these, or setting limits for yourself, like, okay, don't eat whatever food. That's coming from a place of restriction, and that's restriction is not sustainable in any capacity, really. Another really good goal would be like accumulate 30 continuous minutes of movement on a weekly basis, which could mean as simple as doing 10 minutes more of exercise 3 days a week, which I think is probably sustainable. Well, depending on the person, right? And their goals. That is coming from a place of, okay, I want to do a little bit more. I'm getting a little bit more active. You're adding more good to you, versus like taking away something that's you perceive to be bad, but isn't actually bad. The goals that are going to work and the resolutions that are going to work are the ones that are, one, realistic and sustainable, right? Two, the ones that are more intrinsically motivated than they are extrinsically motivated. So making your resolutions about feeling good or involving feeling good as opposed to, fitting a certain shape or just for the hell of it, or arbitrary goals about weight and your body shape and stuff like that. So intrinsic motivation, what I mean by that is like things that make you feel good, things that make you feel happy, things that are going to affect how you feel and your emotions, I guess, as opposed to like extrinsic motivations, which are usually, I guess, powered by opinions of other people. So it is 2021. Hopefully we get a redo from 2020. Not a redo, but hopefully we learned from 2020 about yourself, about the world, whatever. And then, New Year's is a great time to kind of sit and reflect, I think. like I said, there's no perfect time to start working towards your goals, but New Year's is a great time to do that because that's when the calendars change and schedules change, and people are usually evaluating other parts of their life at that time too. So it's a good time to lump that in. But with that being said, not a lot of people stick to their resolutions, and it's because of a lot of reasons. So you want to make sure that your resolution or your goal is sustainable for you and it's realistic, right? So I hope this was helpful, and I hope this sparks some conversation with you and your circle that is hopefully pushing you to be better. If you like this content, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time for the next episode.